Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Disney. Woke Disney is getting accused of stealing millions of dollars from its investors in some of its film projects in a new massive lawsuit. Disney's also taking some other desperate actions. They seem to be casting actually a white lead for a white character, Rapunzel, in a live-action version of Tangled that's coming up. They're also shutting down an animation studio in Korea they own for Lucasfilm to save money. And they seem to be going far outside of the normal practice in selling some of their divisions, basically pushing as quick as they can to raise cash to sell these things instead of taking their time and getting the right price. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you. I'm trying to get to 30,000 subscribers, so if you can't subscribe, please do subscribe. This is the big story. Movie financier TSG accuses Disney of depriving it of millions of dollars. TSG's lawsuit, which also names Disney unit 20th Century Fox, is similar to Scarlett Johansson's 2021 suit against the company. What Disney is doing is they are making special deals because they're in control of the content. So they're doing things with licensing for streaming services. They're controlling the pricing on it and doing funny accounting tricks so that they can basically take money away from their investors from profit participation. These aren't stockholders. These are people that directly invest cash in films to get a return on that investment on their films. TSG Entertainment, which helped co-finance hits including Avatar: The Way of Water and the Deadpool franchise for 20th Century Fox, is suing the studio and its parent company, Disney, for breach of contract. A suit filed Tuesday in Los Angeles Superior Court by TSG alleges that the Disney-owned movie studio intentionally withheld profits and cut sweetheart deals to boost its own streaming platforms, Hulu and Disney Plus, as well as its stock price at the expense of its partners. So when Disney starts to report numbers and they say, hey, look at us, we're losing less money on streaming, we're improving. And in the same report, they're announcing, oh, well, by the way, we also have a one-time charge of $2.4 billion for all the content that's now unusable. But don't count that because that's just kind of a once-in-a-lifetime event. It's a special thing. Don't count that against our profitability. We're really doing better. Now, you, in addition to that, see lawsuits like this one saying, hey, wait a minute, they're not actually paying us our part of the profits. So how is Disney really improving its results and its streaming services when it doesn't count those gigantic one-time expenses and when it doesn't pay all of its partners that are supposed to get part of the revenue when they put up the money after a film comes out? TSG also claims that the actions deprived it of cash. The financier needed to exercise options to invest more in individual films, and that TSG's efforts to sell stakes in other movies to fund more investments were hindered. What that means is they invest money in the production of these films. In exchange for that money, they get a percentage of the gross revenue, less some expenses. After it becomes clear how well the film did, they can then sell the investment that they have, which is going to have some residual income over time, to other investors, get their money back out, and then invest in new projects. So it kind of keeps their business going. So what Disney is doing, aside from shaving money off of the deals that it's not entitled to, basically just taking money away from partners and lying about the results on the movies or adding extra charges that aren't really supposed to be there, but they're also blocking this company from selling its minority interests for these residuals so that their cash is still tied up in these projects when it's not supposed to be. TSG said it spent $3.3 billion over the past decade co-funding more than 140 movies, including critical darlings such as Hidden Figures, Jojo Rabbit, The Shape of Water, and The Banshees of Inisherin. In the lawsuit, TSG said Disney and the studio have tried to use nearly every trick in the Hollywood accounting book to deprive it of hundreds of millions of dollars. In that hundreds of millions of dollars is included money they should have been paid, but also the tie-up of their working capital because Disney is blocking them from selling ownership that they have in films that they shouldn't be blocking. Under the terms of the deal between TSG and the movie studio, any dispute gets filed in court first before the two sides agree on a private judge. By filing in court, both sides will then have the ability to appeal that ruling if they desire. Headed by brothers Chip and Robert Selig, both Wall Street veterans, TSG has long-standing relations with several Hollywood studios, including Warner Brothers and Sony Pictures. Its partnership with the Fox movie studio was struck in 2012, and it's been amended several times ever since then. The way such arrangements typically work is that the financier invests in a slate of films, so a bunch of films at once, and subsequently can invest more in individual titles within a time frame determined by the terms of the deal. TSG recently requested an audit after noticing a decline in its profits. After examining the books for 3 undisclosed films, TSG alleges it found rampant self-dealing and accounting tricks that showed it had been underpaid by $40 million. Self-dealing is Disney making special deals that benefit Disney and having them basically not do a fair market rate and just do a rate that give Disney more profit than it's entitled to get. TSG also claims it wasn't credited with revenue it should have received. Well, that is just straight up stealing if that's what happened. Additionally, it said it was charged tens of millions of dollars for distribution fees that weren't part of its revenue participation agreement. These additional distribution fees would basically be like going into business with someone and having them say, oh yeah, we had some extra expenses. We don't really have all the profits that we thought we were going to have, and then paying people less based on these now actually made up and not real expenses. That is not good. I mean, they're really accusing them of fraud here. The suit is similar in some respects to the one that was filed in 2021 by the actress Scarlett Johansson against Disney over the company's decision to put her Marvel movie Black Widow on Disney Plus at the same time it was in its theatrical release. Johansson's people argued that the movie breached her contract, which guaranteed an exclusive theatrical release that factored heavily into her potential salary. That suit was eventually settled. Her issue was, if you're going to release it on Disney Plus, then people aren't going to go see it in the theaters. The salary she was paid was some upfront money and then also percentage of profits after the movie came out. Well, if there's going to be less profits from movie theaters, then she's going to get paid less. Then she probably wouldn't have taken the same upfront salary deal. It was a big blow up, but it did get settled. So she was paid off. TSG is represented by Bird Morella partner John Berlinski, the same lawyer who represented Johansson. In this case, TSG alleges that a recent recognition of the Fox movie studio deal with Warner Bros. Discovery's HBO channel and Max streaming service had a similar effect on its potential profits. Check this out. Under the terms of the original agreement, HBO paid a premium for an exclusive window to carry its movies on its service. In 2021, about 2 years after Disney acquired the Fox studio along with other entertainment assets, the deal was changed to give Disney the right to put films on Disney Plus and Hulu at the same time as HBO. In return for HBO giving up exclusivity, the license fees it pays for the movies were reduced. Well, that makes sense. If you're not going to get the movies exclusively for HBO, you're not going to pay the exclusive fee. You'll pay a shared fee, a non-exclusive fee. The problem is when Disney says, okay, you can just pay us less money, HBO, don't worry about it. We're all friends here. You can have it on HBO Max. We'll keep it also on Disney Plus. You know, that's fine. But the film investor, TSG, was supposed to get a percentage of gross revenues derived. Meaning, if let's say you cut the license fee in half, then TSG gets half of what it was supposed to get. And that works for Disney, but it obviously doesn't work for TSG. And that's a good example of self-dealing. The suit alleges that the revised HBO deal cost the Fox movie studio many millions of dollars, a portion of which TSG would otherwise have received. TSG said it also tried to exercise a right to sell its stake in other films it had funded back to the movie studio or to another company. Disney refused to engage and challenged what films TSG believed it had the rights to sell off. So now Disney is saying, hey, look, you don't have the rights to sell those parts of ownership. So now Disney is even denying that this company, TSG, that invested this cash up front to finance their movies doesn't have the right to own or sell those parts of those movies. As a result, TSG claims it didn't have the resources to invest in more certain films, including the massive hit Avatar: The Way of Water, the suit said. If you thought that was outrageous, wait until you hear this. This was not in the Wall Street Journal article, but this piece was added in the CNBC article that dealt with this story. Quote, most egregiously, this scheme triggered a provision in the revenue participation agreement that entitles Fox, now owned by Disney, to a 50% share of TSG's profits after the closing up of TSG's investment vehicle. What that means is Disney, by messing around with not paying the full amount it's supposed to pay in profit sharing to its investor who invested and financed their films is able to then say, oh, well, you didn't generate as much success as you were supposed to. You didn't invest enough money in enough film projects, because they would have reinvested and reinvested in new projects if Disney was being fair with them and playing appropriately with them. So as a result, Disney can say, well, by the way, you owe us half of the total profits of whatever it is that we paid you for this entire group of projects, the whole slate of films that we financed. That is why TSG is angry at Disney. Things like this don't normally happen in a close industry like the film industry. With a company like Disney, yes, Disney's been sued before. There have been disputes, of course, but you expect to do ongoing business with the people that are financing your projects on an ongoing basis. So people don't do wildly sketchy things like what Disney is being accused of doing here. Coming from Bloomberg, another reason Disney is obviously getting desperate. Lucasfilm to shut Singapore studio after nearly 20 years. Walt Disney Company's Lucasfilm is winding down its operations in Singapore after almost 20 years in the country, reflecting challenges in the industry. The move will affect more than 300 employees at Lucasfilm's visual effects and animation studio, Industrial Light and Magic, having once built Disney into the world's most powerful entertainment company by acquiring Pixar and Marvel Studios, along with Star Wars' Lucasfilm. Bob Iger is now slashing spending with cutbacks and layoffs at a time when rival Netflix is adding subscribers. Iger's contract was extended through 2026 just last month, so he's not getting fired, he's not getting laid off, but everybody at this studio, it looks like 300 employees, are. If they're just going to produce the kind of things they've been producing, there's no reason for them to have all these extra studios. They could consolidate all this down and save themselves a lot of money. Hopefully they will improve their quality. They might, but in the meantime, it looks like they're going to lay off a lot of people. Another big shock for Disney, they may be going backwards on the woke thing. There's a rumor that Florence Pugh is the top choice for Disney's live action Tangled. And as you can probably notice, it's not a race swap. It would be the first thing they've done that's not a race swap for a major project like this in, I don't even know how long, a very long time. Maybe they're doing that because they realize the race swap stuff just does not play well. Another article, and I'm just going to cover part of it from Puck, Iger deals psychology. Iger may be consulting Warren Buffett and Kevin Mayer and Tom Staggs about his streaming options, but in the everything is on the table era at Disney, well, there aren't that many options really left on the table. Here with a Wall Street view of a Hollywood challenge. William Cohen, he's a former investment banker and he writes for Puck. He writes some really intelligent things sometimes. He does have a lot of mergers and acquisitions experience, so when you sell and buy companies, and he wrote this about Disney. If you look at each of Iger's recent strategic decisions, you've got to wonder if he may be simply running out of good ideas for how to solve Disney's myriad of problems, or as Matt Belloni wrote earlier this week, quote, it's hard not to see Iger's latest decisions as knee-jerk plays for quick cash. Dangling assets for sale on CNBC is not the best way to go about a mergers and acquisitions process unless, of course, you are desperate, meaning you're supposed to take the time. It's like trying to sell your house over the weekend. You can sell your house over the weekend, but you're not going to get the right price for it because you're not leaving enough time to market the house, to find the people who are the best possible buyers for it that value it the most in the market. Now, potential buyers are well aware that Iger wants his linear TV assets off the books and can take advantage of that fact. We've seen this before in 2015 when GE, General Electric, publicly announced its desire to sell GE Capital. Buyers from Blackstone to Apollo to Wells Fargo all exploited the process to get a good deal for themselves. There are a lot more examples of Disney taking quick, desperate actions to raise cash and to try to make changes happen as quickly as possible. But I thought these were good 4 items to look at to really show something is not quite right over at Disney, and it's not just the woke content. It's very hard to trust this company when articles like these keep coming out. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.